Hey guys, wanted to tell you a crazy story of what happened. Thankfully we're back in the US now, but on the way from Belarus to the US, we traveled via Lithuanian border, and me and the kids got illegally detained at the Lithuanian border for carrying 3 liters of alcohol through. 3 liters, guys. So their allowance for transit travelers is 5 liters, but this girl Ivana Balcevich argued that I wasn't a transit traveler and telling me, she said I could have 0 alcohol transferred through the border. That's not what their online guidance say on the customs border website. It says you can have 1 liter of hard liquor and 2 liters of alcohol that's under like 22%. I had a combination of both, so essentially I was within the parameters. I think the problem was with the fact that we were dual citizens, and we were specifically targeted for that, which made me very upset because, you know, if you've ever traveled in that part of the world, you know that people bring alcohol through back and forth all the time. There's limits to that. If you ever get pulled over and let's say you are over the limit, they would take maybe away the access of alcohol you're carrying, and then you just continue on. Nope. She essentially threatened to send us back to Belarus because of bringing alcohol through, and she ended up issuing a fine, and there's a court hearing for November sometimes, and that fine is to range between 200 euros to 6,000 euros. You can imagine I was absolutely furious. The way that we were treated like criminals. We were taken off of the bus and detained at the border for over 2 hours for this little thing. And supposedly what she was, so I said, you need to point out to me what law I broke. And she pointed me to the signs. I went and looked around, and I said, you need to come here and specifically show me what you're pointing to, because all the printouts here with icons that you are referring to, they have to do with not bringing food and agriculture items. It has nothing to do with alcohol. So there was no signs whatsoever at the border about you can or cannot bring any alcohol. There was a little font printout that said there have been some restrictions implemented on the alcohol carry through the border as sanctions to Belarus and Russia since the war started. And there's nothing outlined what that means. It says here's the link to go to, and it's printed, pasted link on a piece of paper. Like, when you don't have internet there, how are you even supposed to know what that all means and says, first of all? Second of all, you're not explicitly showing what the limitations are. I showed to her, I said, well, I'm a transit traveler, and I'm showing you, I can show you my documents that I am to be in this country for less than 5 hours to catch a flight, and the requirements for transit travelers are that we can bring 5 liters of alcohol, and I am bringing the allotted amount within the specs that are outlined. she was telling me that transit is only considered when you travel by air and you stay within airport. And I said, no, transit for years has been considered whether you travel in the airport or you can be outside of the airport. You can be coming through the land border, and that's still considered transit. So on their website, they have no definition of what transit is. However, when I went to their website for Belarusians to apply for a transit visa, it clearly states that you need to apply and you're considered a transit traveler if you're traveling from Lithuania to non-Schengen country, which US is a non-Schengen country. And if you're traveling from Belarus through Lithuania to your destination of another country. So I haven't broken any laws. I know rules pretty well. So I'm very upset about what happened. She told me I had to sign paperwork, and the problem is, I said, well, can you provide copies to me in English or Russian language? And she said, no, you can translate it yourself into Russian, she said. And I said, she said that she was going to translate it for me verbally. I said, but what you're telling me versus what's written here, I have no way of verifying that that's true. So then she proceeded to supposedly explain to me what she was issuing me an administrative fine for. And I had to sign paperwork. But what upset me the most, guys, is this. I call US Embassy and I have a US official on the line, a US consul, and I tell her, I need you to talk to her and explain the situation, what's going on. And she lied to me and she said she didn't speak English, which everybody who works at the Lithuanian border, I have not yet seen a single person who doesn't speak English. Then I said, okay, if you don't speak English, you need to invite somebody who can speak English and can explain what's going on. She refused to do that. She refused to talk to a US consulate office, guys. I was so upset. I said, I need to talk to whoever is in charge here. And she said, he knows what's going on. He is in a loop. And I said, I need to talk to them. I need them to come out here. And she totally refused to bring in that person. So I was so furious. You cannot imagine how mad I was to be treated like this. And that was Lithuanian border. Let me tell you, usually people talk about, you know, at the Belarusian border, people get detained and get whatever, you know, things taken away and fined, whatever. No. This is Lithuanian border treating people like this. And by the way, this is not the first time that I myself, when traveling through the border, witness of how they harass people with dual citizenship. When I traveled back in June, there was a woman traveling with daughter who was a dual Dutch citizen, and she was harassed by Lithuanian border patrol. That is absolutely unacceptable. And I reached out to US Department of State and US Embassy in Lithuania. I filed an official grievance with the border patrol and got the Lithuanian consulate office involved here in the US. I will be demanding that they meet and discuss this situation at the high level among the diplomats, because this is absolutely targeting and harassing US citizens. Like, this is so wrong on so many levels. So yeah, I just cannot even believe this happened, to be honest with you. You know, living in America, you hear about those hatred targeted, you know, things that happen, but you don't expect Lithuanian or any country's officials to be acting this way towards people. There needs to be respect and fair and humanly treatment of each other, regardless of whether you're from the US, Belarus, any other country. I don't care. There has to be a respectful treatment. But there has been harassment happening like this, and this is a great example that I will be working on getting addressed and make sure that this is not going to happen to any other US citizen that travels abroad.